for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked the young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TB. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon with you on this Friday evening. I am the Hebrew Hammer. You're listening to the Sick Podcast, brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, and they are a full leading logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. We're also brought to you by Playground. Playground has over 600 machines, poker tournaments, and Playground casino games. Daily promotions and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes away from downtown Montreal. We're also brought to you by La Bitte TB beer, brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bitte TB offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bitte TB, embrace your true nature. We're also brought to you by sportsbuffshop.com. Shop all your licensed lifestyle apparel, including hoodies, caps, and tees of your favorite teams from all major leagues at sportsbuffshop.com. Use code SICK10 for 10% off all their items. All right. So not much happening this week in terms of news with the Canadiens. Obviously, we had a really interesting interview on Monday with Tony, with Dominic Ducharme. I broke that down on Tuesday with Stu Cowan. That made some headlines around the Montreal media, which is always nice to see. But the Canadiens kind of gave the media world a blessing, a little nugget, something to talk about. They released a behind-the-scenes draft video. It's about 17 minutes long. You could find it on YouTube. It was really, really interesting, really, really cool. So we're going to talk about it today, along with fantasy hockey. And who better to talk about it than the host of Sick Prospects, Shayne Gaumond. Producer Shayne, what's going on?
I'm doing well. Hey, man, I need a nickname like the Hebrew Hammer. That goes hard, man. That's a great nickname.
Listen, I'm not the first one. I'm not the first one to be named the Hebrew Hammer. There's also Josh Rosen. There's also a movie called The Hebrew Hammer, believe it or not.
That's tough.
It's a hilarious movie. But anyone who is Jewish and not in a Jewish circle, when you expand beyond, you are known as the Hebrew Hammer, which is what my non-Jewish friends call me. I like Producer Shayne, though. Producer Shayne's not bad.
I'll roll with it. It's better than what Tony calls me, that's for sure.
What does he call you?
Oh, it can't be said on air. That stays behind closed doors.
It's funny. It's funny because Tony is super professional. You'll never hear him swear unless you listen back to the episode of when Pierre-Luc Dubois got traded to the LA Kings, and he was saying everything was bullshit. That's like the first time I had ever heard Tony swear on air. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But off the air, if any of our listeners, just a little tidbit to peel back the curtain a little bit. Off the air, this guy has a mouth like a drunken sailor. It's unbelievable what comes out of his mouth. Anyways, funny, though. Enough about Tony. Let's talk a little bit about that draft video because I thought it was super interesting. Also interesting that they would go the draft route, considering the reaction to the first round pick. I don't know. I found that a little weird that they would go that route of giving the behind the scenes, not mentioning his name, Mitchkov. Everyone knew that they were talking about when they were comparing two players. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like that kind of. I haven't seen the reaction to it, but it could have reignited some blowback and bad, I guess, negative feelings from the fan base.
Honestly, I think that's kind of died down a bit. You always have those outliers that are still outraged and want nothing to do with Reinbacher, but anybody with a head on their shoulder will admit that this is looking like a good pick. Like, you can't really complain. You can complain about who we passed on, but as to who we picked, there's nothing to complain about here. Reinbacher's a terrific kid. I got a chance to meet him at development camp. He was fantastic. Just such a funny, heartwarming kind of guy. The kind of guy you want to root for, right? So I don't really think it's going to spark, an outrage or anything like that. I was just happy to get, a glimpse of those discussions that they had, and we saw they got pretty heated. Like, there was this conversation between two scouts about the goalies, and one of them was saying, like, Jacob Fowler has been the best everywhere he's gone, right? Throughout his junior career, you can say he's been at the top of his game. So anyways, like, those kind of tidbits I love. And I love the one they did last year, with Slavkovsky. That's another interesting discussion that they had. You mentioned how they didn't name Mitchkov in the video. And I cut this clip of Jeff Gorton talking about someone, right? But it's insinuating. I think we could have a listen here.
Yeah. If we have it, pull it up.
There's only so many chances an organization does to get to add talent. It's very hard. You can't do it in free agency anymore, really. You're getting older players and you have to pay them a lot of money, right? You pretty much have to draft or get lucky to get high-end talent now, right? And sometimes you take a chance, and so it seems as though this room has said, no, we don't want to try this chance. And I just want to make sure we're making the right decision.
Pretty obvious who he's talking about there, eh?
Yeah, I love it because it's not like I love it on a couple different levels. One, I like that they knew that it was a risk and he was willing to take the risk, clearly. What I also like is that they had the discussion about him. They clearly thought a lot about it. It wasn't just like, let's throw this out the window. Yeah, I know. It's really, he had Panarin in his room when he was in New York, and he signed him, and he knows like that doesn't happen all the time. You don't get a Temi Panarin in free agency all the time, and you have the chance to draft one. I don't know if that's his comparable. I'm just saying because he was a hotshot free agent that signed with New York. I thought that was really interesting, and you mentioned the discussion between the two goalies. I thought it was really weird to see the questions that they ask them. With talking about Jacob Fowler, what I really liked was like they're asking him questions about players, like right-handed shot, left-handed shot, and he's like, he's just like, we're just going to name you players, and you're going to tell us what type of style he plays. It's almost like he's scouting himself, which I really like because you like to see hockey nerds in the room.
Yeah, we actually have that clip. We can
there you go.
And watch it. Yeah, it's really impressive.
Tell me if they're righty, lefty, passer, shooter.
Perfect.
Okay. Harvey, Chicago.
He's a passer. He's a lefty.
Lefty. Perron.
Perron's a shooter, and he's a righty. He's got a really good shot.
Fine.
Fine's a righty. Didn't see too much of it this year. I'd say he's probably more of a passer, yeah.
So you know your stuff?
I do. You can probably go up and down the whole USHL, and I could name righty, lefty.
Now, when did you start studying it like that?
I don't think it was ever a study as much as just not even a photo memory. You play against those guys, and if you want to stop those guys, you're going to figure out real quick if he's a righty or lefty if you want to stop the puck. I mean, you can't play your short side wrong if it's a righty on his one side or a lefty on the other side. So I think if you don't know what hands they are, or if they're a shooter or passer, you're not going to be very successful.
Man.
So I really like that. Another reason why, I mean, I might be getting ahead of myself here, but it's that's what we do with prospects. And the biggest tip I was always told about prospects is their value is never as high as for most of them as the day they were drafted, you know, because everyone's gassing them up.
Okay.
Everyone's
Yeah,
talking about them as if they're compared to this guy, that guy, whatever. But the thing that I like about the Canadiens drafting an American goalie is just the American goal. Like the American system right now is pumping out a lot more
Really
quality goaltenders than the Canadian system. You could talk about the Russian system, but like Finland, for example, was known for good goalies once upon a time. That's kind of fizzling out right now. It's really the Americans that are pumping out these good goaltenders.
That's it. I mean, like Jacob Fowler won a lot of hearts with that video. I'm convinced. Like he won mine, that's for sure. From that clip to, you know, when he talks about having the chip on his shoulder, right? Watching the OHL draft for 6 hours and not being picked, and then, you know, saying that Youngstown got lucky that I was in their corner because I was ready to go. Like, this guy has the dog in him. And that's what you want. You want a competitor. You want a guy that'll give his best when it matters most. And that's exactly what Jacob Fowler is.
Yeah. And it's like, we know that the Canadiens drafted 3 goaltenders in that draft, which was a little weird, but you know, the cupboard was bare in goaltending. You know, clearly they don't really believe in the guys in Laval. Maybe they don't think that Montembeault is the long-term solution. I won't read too much into it because most goalies aren't like Spencer Knight and crack the NHL right the year after they were drafted. But you know, that was an addressing a position of need, and they did that there. Back to Reinbacher. You know, like what you said. When you say like he's obviously going to be a good player, I agree. It's the part that will hurt everyone is who they passed on. I feel like that's the thing, is that nobody really thinks he's going to be a bad player. I think where people start to, you know, find reasons to be upset about the pick, obviously that's a big one. The biggest thing that you could say to that is, well, you don't really know because we don't know anything about Mitchkov right now. And I guess the rebuttal to that would be, yeah, well, he's being compared to Adam Larsson. You know, like, I feel like that's another pressure point for people that, like, you know, he's either being compared to Roman Josi or Adam Larsson. It's like, which one are we going to get, kind of thing.
That's it. Yeah, I remember when Craig Button made that comparison, I scratched my head. I'm like, Adam Larsson's a fine defenseman, but I think Reinbacher has a much higher ceiling than that. You know, opponents of Reinbacher, like guys who have played against him, say that he could be, you know, a Pietrangelo type of a player. So if that's the case, man, like, you know, Habs are in good hands. But regarding Mitchkov, like, you look at what he's doing right now with SKA St. Petersburg. He's on a short leash, even though he's probably the best player on his team. You know, Grant McCagg has highlighted the fact that if he makes a mistake, he's likely done for the rest of the game. He gets stapled to that bench. And for the next 3 years, right? The Philadelphia Flyers have to be worried about that for the next 3 years. And Martin Lapointe spoke to Grant McCagg about that, and he gave me the inside info, right? Martin Lapointe said that not being able to control his development, have a say in you know, where he is and all that, he has to play in St. Petersburg for the next 3 years, and however they run him is how they run him. And when he comes to the NHL, who knows what you'll have, right? And that scared the room. That scared the scouts, and you know, they went with the safe pick, who will still be a fantastic player. But it's really just like the upside, right? What can be with Mitchkov that we passed on. And that's what Jeff Gorton spoke about. It's like that kind of talent you have to draft. They don't just fall off trees, right? You have to draft these guys. And, you know, is the risk outweighing the benefits? Then in this case it is. And they decided to pass.
You know, it's the other level to that video that we played, that clip that we played, was, you know, it's how much stock can you put into something that came from the Habs. But the other side is like, if there were, I mean, I can't say that all the doubts are completely gone, but for the people who had doubts of Kent Hughes just being a face and Jeff Gorton is the puppet master, I mean, you got to say that's out the window, because Kent Hughes was on Team Reinbacher and Jeff Gorton was on team Mitchkov, clearly.
Yeah.
And, that didn't happen. So anyone who thought that Gorton was the puppet master, this is Kent Hughes' team. And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I kind of like that they have a room full of people that aren't like-minded, That to me is a huge positive for the Habs, that they're not, so he's not, Jeff Gorton didn't surround himself with yes men like Marc Bergevin kind of did.
That's it. And I remember after the draft, right, Martin Lapointe and Nick Bobrov had a press conference, and they mentioned how the decision was unanimous. And that kind of raised some eyebrows. They're like, okay, is there really like an internal debate? But I think what they meant by that is like everyone was on board with Reinbacher, right? There was guys that, wanted Mitchkov, but if it wasn't Mitchkov, I think everyone was going Reinbacher.
Right.
So, and on top of that, I recently learned that it was actually Martin Lapointe and Nick Bobrov that made the final draft decision, not Kent Hughes, which I thought was interesting, right? Kent and Jeff have a say in the discussion, right? They have a voice, but really it comes down to the head scouts, which is their job at the end of the day, right? Their job is to scout these players and give their opinions. That's not the job of Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. Their job is much wider than that, right? They're involved in everything in in making the team better. But those two guys, their sole purpose is to bring in that young talent, and they both decided Reinbacher was the guy. I have a hard time disagreeing with that, right? I can't tell the future, but if they were that sold, both of them, I can't complain.
I can't complain either. The one thing that I wonder what their risk assessment was like with Mitchkov. Because, like what you said, they want to control what they like, the player that they drafted and his development. They want to have a say, and that's totally fine. That's totally normal. Obviously, they will have little to no control had they drafted Mitchkov. But the part that it's interesting is you got to think of it in terms of, CSK is trying to, or St. Petersburg is trying to win hockey games too. If Mitchkov gives them the best chance, they're going to put him on the ice. They're not going to be in the back of their, just logically thinking, I don't know, because this is Vladimir Putin's favorite freaking hockey team. So I don't know how much pull he has there. And if he's going to North America, how much that changes, but it's they want to ice the best team too. So I don't completely buy into him being stapled to the bench, but I will buy that, they want to have control over how he develops and things he has to work on, and they want to get daily or weekly reports on him and whatever. That I could buy into. It's if they're going to hamper his development, it's not the first time we've heard that. We've heard that many times. We've heard that. I've heard that from Mitch Giguère told me that. We heard Snake Boisvert say it. We've heard a lot of people say things like this about different players, and I don't know. I just don't buy into it too much.
Yeah, the chances are he'll develop well, right? You look at the odds. Odds are he'll come into the NHL and be better than Kaprizov, right? That's where it's looking to go. But it's just that off chance of let's say that, we don't know what's going on over there. No one does except the ones that are over there, right? So let's say, right, hypothetically, that this is right, move forward in the future, his last year at SKA. And then he's talking about making the jump to the NHL, and then the coaching staff is like, well, screw you then, we're not going to play you, right? That's always a possibility.
Yeah.
It's just that unknown, right? That unknown of what they're going to do with him, if he's going to develop properly. Chances are he will, like I said, but they didn't feel like it was worth the risk. And I did clip the part where they talk about what they really like about Reinbacher, and I thought that was also pretty interesting. So we can have a listen here.
Reinbacher, just at 5, you just have this feeling of what it could be, the upside of it all, right? So I just been going through my mind.
I think when we watched Reinbacher play, I saw the compete, I saw the defending, He's all about winning, not selfish. Like, because like I'm like everybody talking about defense, but like in my opinion, he's so special also in offense. Like he's so good on the power play. He's so like he moves well, like he reads the play well, he organizes passes out. So
he's highly talented offensively. He's just not. He doesn't show it all the time because he plays such a smart defensive first game. He's young in the league, but he's got so much skill.
I saw him under pressure. We saw the games in the playoff, and they were hard games, and they were trying to run them. I didn't see him bail out once or panic with the puck, not one.
I think it's hard to find that asset like size, right shot, D. I really like him. He's a good player, but I think it'd be easier for everybody, including you guys and the staff, to find the bit that brings everything. There is a harder thing to find. And going back and looking at all the teams that won the Stanley Cup, they have that premier defenseman.
I love that little music they play. It's so dramatic.
Yeah, I know. It makes it sound like really intense. But you know, like it's a copycat league. I don't think many people are going to copy what Vegas's blueprint was, because you know, they had, like, people are saying like they didn't have a superstar. They're a bunch of, they're not ragtag guys that are like banded together like they were when they entered the league, but like they had freaking Jack Eichel, you know, like, and also, you know, he won the Conn Smythe. Did Jonathan Marchessault, so he's not a premier name. Yeah, I'm still sour about Jack Eichel not winning it because, you know, I would have won $2,000 if he did. But like the guy's not a superstar, Marchessault, but he's scoring 30, 40, 26 goals a year. You know what I mean? Like that blueprint is kind of not going to be followed. So I like what they said there, because like you look at Tampa Bay, they have obviously Victor Hedman. I've even put Victor Hedman's progression in the same breath as Reinbacher, because like
that's fair,
Victor Hedman at the beginning of his career. I'm not saying they play the same style before we both get murdered in the comments. I'll preface it again. Is that they don't play the same style, but like in terms of offensive, you know, in terms of how they're being spoken about, he's a big body, Reinbacher. He's obviously not as big as Hedman. But you know, when he came into the league, he was just a big guy. He was still learning the game. And then finally, I want to say like maybe 3, 4, 5 years into his career, that's when he became like that physical specimen on the ice, and you're like, holy shit, we have to deal with this monster that's 6'7", and he's a great defenseman, hard to move around, and oh yeah, he's also going to score 15 goals a year. Like that's when, you know, things start to come on for defensemen. So I mean, hey, if Reinbacher becomes, you know, half of what Hedman is, I would say I won't call it a home run, but I would say it's a pretty damn good pick, and it's hard to argue that it's a flop.
It's great value at number 5, right? And what stood out to me was how much emphasis they put on his offensive game, right? We all are talking about how, he's not this, you know, massive offensive threat, but he just does everything well. And how they're saying that he actually does have some serious offensive potential. Imagine pairing that with Lane Hudson. Like you know, that's 5 forwards on the ice essentially, and then 2 of them can play defense. I think that's really interesting. And you know, is it really better than taking a guy that will likely score, you know, 50 or upwards of 50 goals a season? Who knows? But at the end of the day, they want to build a Stanley Cup champion team, not a regular season champion team, right? Toronto. So having those pieces to fit that puzzle, to be okay, this is a team that can actually win the cup, not just finish first in the division. No, win the cup. That's what we want, right? At the end of the day, if let's say Mitchkov is scoring 60 with Philadelphia, but the Habs are winning the cup and Reinbacher's playing good, then that was a great pick at number 5. So time will tell, but their logic does make sense for the most part. I can't really bash anything they said.
Yeah, me neither. I thought it was just a great all around video. You know, like whenever I kind of roll my eyes, at least like whenever a team posts something like that, because it's kind of like,
propaganda.
you know, like yeah, exactly.
They show what they want to show. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. But I felt like we got a pretty good, you know, like pretty good gauge on, like, they obviously had to leave some stuff out, but like you know, they didn't shy away from the discussions they had. Clearly Jeff Gorton didn't shy away from how his feelings on Mitchkov. So I liked it. I thought for a propaganda video, it was pretty it could pass as if it came from like Amazon, right? Like Amazon All or Nothing. You know, it could pass. Anyways, any other notes from the go ahead.
One thing that stood out to me was also in the interview process at the combine, that psychologist they had, I forget his name. First of all, I thought that's a great idea, right? Like having an actual psychologist, someone who understands the human psyche is a fantastic idea. But the questions he was asking were really strange, right? That one he asked to Reinbacher. But then we also heard that I don't know if it was him, but there was a question about how, like, you know, saving your teammates on the beach of Normandy and stuff like that. Like, and you're asking Reinbacher, who's Austrian, those kinds of questions. You know, that's a little weird. I understand why they didn't put it in the video, because then it would have gotten flamed. But I actually clipped the one about the cash machine, as the guy called it. Such a weird question. Let's take a listen to that. It's worth it.
The bank machine where you get the money, you put your card in and you get the money.
Yeah.
You are waiting in line to go to the machine, okay?
Yeah.
And there is two little old ladies there in front of you.
Yeah.
But before the next woman can get there, this guy comes straight in, goes right to the machine, just jumps in front of you folks and goes to the machine. What would you do in that situation?
I would say something to the guy. There's respect to every guy or every human. If there's a line, you gotta like respect the line and stay behind the line. Especially if they're like older women's, they need a little bit longer. So you gotta respect that and help them.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Man, when I first saw that, I was cracking up. Like, what would you answer to that? You know?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I would do something about it. You know, like me personally, if I had answered honestly, I'm not getting drafted by the Canadiens, because I probably wouldn't do anything, if I'm being real. You know, but I believe him. You know, those Eastern Europeans, they're hard nosed. They're tough customers. You know, you get a customer service over there. I remember when I went to Czech Republic, I went to Prague once, and I went on a free walking tour, and my tour guide, he's suggesting some restaurants that I should go to, and he goes, okay, you're Canadian. You Canadians and Americans, you're used to one way of customer service. You're going to go to a restaurant. You're going to expect a hi, how are you? Oh, this is whatever, nice conversation. No. It's what do you want? Here's your food. That's how it is, you know? So I believe Reinbacher when he says that. But yeah, you know what I would think would be cool? It would be really funny. This would never happen though. You know, you remember that TV show? Sometimes it pops up on my TikTok. It was an old TV show called What Would You Do, or something like that. It's a hidden camera TV show. Kind of social experiment kind of show. I want to see that with draft prospects, or like
actually
NHL
put
players.
them in the situation. Yeah.
That'd
just
be
like
awesome. Not even necessarily draft prospects, like NHL players, coaches. Like I want to see what they're all about, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like you want to really evaluate someone's psyche.
Exactly.
You know, the NHL should set it up so you don't have to have the psychological questions being asked in the interviews.
Yeah, like I was thinking about that question. I'm like, how does this, you know, give an idea of what that player will do on the ice? You know, someone cuts an old lady at the cash machine. What do? I'm trying to find the correlation, and I'm no psychologist, right? So I'm a business major. I don't know this shit. If you do in the comments, please help me out. But I really don't understand it. But hey, if it works, it works. And they seem to like Reinbacher, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's it. And, like you said, only time's going to tell. And we'll see him. He's coming to Montreal. I think he'll be in Montreal for the preseason, which is good.
Rookie camp too. Yeah, rookie tournament.
Yeah.
All that.
So there you go. And for those who don't know, the red-white scrimmage, inter-squad scrimmage, happened September 10th, I believe. And then September 11th is the golf tournament for the Canadiens. That's when things really start to kick into high gear for us at the Sick Podcast and for the Canadiens and for hockey in general, which is all very, very exciting. Speaking of kicking into gear, listen, it's never too late to start doing your research. Let's talk about it. Let's talk fantasy hockey right now.
Yes, sir.
I'm really excited. I love fantasy hockey. Don't love it as much as fantasy football. It's hard to keep track. You know what I had to do this year? It always derails. It always derails all my seasons. Is because I don't play a category league. I play a head-to-head points league.
Yeah, me too.
I always forget to set my goalies. Always. So I literally set a reminder in my phone starting October 7th, check dailyfaceoff.com. Every day I will be getting that reminder at 1 p.m. So that always derails my season. But let's get into it. Let's get into it. So let's talk about guys who are highly rated, maybe some question marks. I'm going to give you some time here if you don't have it in front of you. We're just going to not overthink this. We're going to go by the NHL top 250 player rankings. I pulled it up. So, it has Connor McDavid obviously at 1, Leon Draisaitl at 2, Nathan McKinnon at 3. I think that's pretty indisputable. Then it's really...
It's in the air.
There's a class of players here. This I find interesting. Auston Matthews is below Jack Hughes and Jason Robertson. I could make a case for the rest of the guys, but those two guys, maybe it's a positional thing, but you're putting a 45 goal scorer, a previous 60 goal scorer actually, but a 45 goal scorer, 45 minimum assists. That's his floor should he play a healthy season, over guys that, don't. Well, Jason Robertson scores, but he doesn't get the assists. And Jack Hughes, he gets the assists, but he doesn't score as much. I don't know. I found that interesting. Do you got any thoughts on that?
I would have Matthews over them, but the margin isn't that big. Jack Hughes playing on New Jersey, who I believe will be the best team in the league this year. I will put that out there. I think New Jersey is going to stomp the league. Their top six is nasty. And then on defense, you got Dougie Hamilton, Luke Hughes, maybe Simon Nemec makes the jump. They're looking good, right? The only question mark is really in net, but I think Akira Schmid was fantastic in the playoffs, and Vitek Vanacek is an NHL goaltender. So with that being said, I think New Jersey is going to be fantastic, and that's why Jack Hughes will benefit from that. But I still think Auston Matthews is elite, right? As a Habs fan, you have to admit it. Come on. Auston Matthews is really damn good. Pair him with Marner and even Tyler Bertuzzi. I think he'll be a great complement to that line. So I expect big things from Matthews if he stays healthy.
So let's look at strategy a little bit, because I feel like many different people have different strategies. I've tried this in the past. It blew up in my face. Positions are really important, obviously, not as much as football, but you still have your forward, center, left wing, right wing, and then defense. Now, I know people who go in my league points based. It's goaltending is set up that we only start one goaltender, so we don't really rank them all that highly. But, I always found it interesting whenever a team would take a second or first defenseman. I'm going to exclude Cale Makar out of this because, he can be drafted in first or second round, no problem. Yeah. But, you take let's just say an Adam Fox in round 3, round 4. Is there really that much of a positional advantage to having an 75 point defenseman versus a 85 we'll even put it 70 to 75 point forward. Is there that much of an advantage?
I think because there's so few high-end defensemen, that someone might take that as, that logic of, okay, there's this handful of like really high-end offensive defensemen. Let me get one right away. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that works. But you have to weigh so you mentioned earlier how it's never too early to start, doing your research. I start doing my research when the season ends. I have this Excel file. I shit you not, Matt. It is my pride and joy. It is massive, and I love it, and I love working on it. But I input all the info that I need and do my rankings and all that. And I start really early, and it changes. But what I do is I have everybody in order, right? And then I list off whoever has been drafted, and then whoever's left, I look, okay, let's say Carter Verhaeghe's left, and let's say, Brandon Montour's left. And okay, so I check whoever I've drafted so far and who I would need. So again, if someone thinks that, okay, they've drafted two centers in the first 2 rounds, and then they have a chance to get a high-end defenseman, then I could see that being a smart decision. But it really depends on what you've drafted before, how this draft is lining up. If you have a few guys on your league that don't know puck, then they might take some weird players and you'll get some steals later on. So you have to balance all of that. It's really strange.
Yeah. So the positional advantage thing is something that I've kind of struggled with, because it's like, what's the cutoff, where you're kind of most defensemen, outside of we'll call it Cale Makar, Adam Fox, we'll say Roman Josi, Victor Hedman. These are the big ones that come to mind. Erik Karlsson, that's right. Those are the 5 big ones. What's the cutoff where it's all right, every defenseman's kind of the same. Every forward's kind of the same at this point. At what point is it okay, I should no longer care. I'm in too deep into this 0D or 1D strategy, and then I'm just going to fill my roster at the end with whatever freaking D is highest on the list. What's the cutoff there?
It's weird. To me, my cutoff is power play time, and I think this is a good segue. I prepared a little graphic about overrated players. We can bring that up. The defenseman that I said was overrated was Dmitry Orlov. Again, overrated fantasy-wise. I can already smell the comments. All right, he's a fantastic defenseman, but with Carolina this season, I really don't think he'll have that much offensive opportunities. He's not going to sniff the power play. He's going to be used defensively, right? So you're going to want to stay away from him. And that's really where my cutoff is, right? If you're not getting any power play time, if you're not, top 3 minutes, there's no point really in even getting that player, unless you're in the categories league, which I don't play in, so I can't really recommend anything. All I can recommend is draft the Kachucks. That's it. That's if you want to win categories, just draft Brady and Matt. That's about it. But if we stay on overrated for a second, I did this for 4 different things. We'll see them later. But my forward is Evgeny Kuznetsov, and I chose him because if he doesn't play with Ovechkin, he is rendered useless. He brings no value whatsoever if he's on the second line. And if he is on the second line, which I do think he will be because Dylan Strome played really well last year, he'll likely not be on the first power play either. So now you have a second line center, a second PP, and he's fairly highly rated. I would steer clear from Kuznetsov. I don't think it'll work out for him this season. And goalie-wise, I have Jacob Markstrom, who had a stinker of a season last year. But the year before that, he was one of the best goaltenders, right? So it's really how you think Calgary will perform this year. And I think that the Pacific Division is just too hard. So I really don't think that Calgary will be that great this year.
I like that you included Jacob Markstrom, because I've kind of had I don't want to, it's not his fault, you know, like this started last, not this past year, but the year before, in the playoffs. Like I'm watching, who's Calgary against Dallas. I'm watching the playoffs. It's the USA or TNT, whatever the hell the feed was. And like, they're talking about Jacob Markstrom. Like the game was going to overtime. He let in like a putrid goal, or as Tony likes to say, a banana in regular time. And it gets pushed to overtime. And like Wayne Gretzky's talking, and you know, who's going to go against the great one and what he says. But, you know, I worked for NBC Sports that year. Watched a lot of late night games. I was in charge of writing those fantasy updates on Yahoo. So I watched a lot of late night hockey and watched a lot of Jacob Markstrom. And like he's saying on the panel, he's like, oh, this is really uncharacteristic of Jacob Markstrom. We haven't seen that stuff this year. Pull up his regular season stats. Look at this. He had 30 wins, 7 shutouts. And I'm just like, no, he's not that good. This was bound to catch up to him. He had like 5 shutouts in the month of November, and like pretty much was your average goaltender the whole rest of the way. So like, for those of you out there, I'm in 100% agreement with producer Shayne. If you like Calgary for whatever reason, don't, because there's no inkling as to them turning it around. Like it wasn't goaltending that kind of screwed them up last year, but the goaltending also didn't help. He's not that goaltender that like he's on a bad team, but he's still going to help you. Kind of like how John Gibson was back in the day.
That's a really good point right there. Let's just move into something a little more positive. My sleeper picks, 3 guys that, you know, should be higher rated in my opinion, like could be steals. My forward, I know Sammy's going to be happy with this because he's a Philadelphia Flyer. Travis Konechny. This man put up 61 points in 60 games last year on a garbage team. Trash. Now, Philly's still not going to be great this year, but this is a over point per game player on a bad team. The potential is very much there. If Travis Konechny falls on your lap, run with it. Okay. He's definitely a sleeper in my book. Same thing with Zach Werenski, right? Great player, bad team. Granted, I think Columbus will take a step forward this year, but nowhere near playoffs. Come on now. But again, this guy was plagued with injuries. He is injury prone, so that is something to keep in mind. But he's running that power play, and you have Johnny Gaudreau, you have Patrick Laine, you'll have Adam Fantilli on there. He's by far the number 1 defenseman on that team. Highly underrated. If you have a chance to draft Zach Werenski, I highly recommend it. And in that, I put Joonas Korpisalo. He's interesting because Ottawa's looking pretty good. I'm not gonna lie; they're on the precipice of the playoffs. Like they could very well do it this year. And he's a fine goaltender, but I'm really banking off of wins here. I think that Ottawa will likely put up some points, and in essence, give him some points. However, the only concern I have is the 1A, 1B potential with Anton Forsberg. If they split the net, then that reduces his value. But I think he'll be the consensus number 1 goalie. And if that's the case, it could be a great value pick there with Korpisalo.
Well, so here's the thing with I like your first 2. Korpisalo I like a little less, but this is fine, right? Because this is like sleepers. That doesn't mean he's like your number 1 goaltender. So whoever is going to murder you in the comments, just stop right now. But like my thing with Ottawa is that they still got to play in the Atlantic Division, and I'm not buying what they're selling. Like. Last year was supposed to be the year, we were supposed to see a little more from them the year before, and we didn't see it. Like they're always falling short of expectation. But on that note, he could be that goalie that I mentioned in the previous, when we were talking about overrated, was like that guy who might not get you a lot of wins, but he's going to rack up the saves. And if you're in a league where saves get you points, you like that because Ottawa's not known for their defense. So not yet. That's
coming.
right.
It's coming. It's coming.
It is coming, but I have a feeling this season he's going to take some pucks.
I would bank on it, honestly. Like that would be a good thing. Like you mentioned, the saves, the wins. I you know what? I'm not a fan of Ottawa whatsoever, but I have to give them the flowers when they're due.
Mm-hmm.
The roster looks good. My concern with Ottawa is DJ Smith. He has not proven jack since he's been the coach, right? And I'm not in the room. The players seem to love him, and if he's able to bring them to the playoffs, that's what Pierre Dorion thinks. Then sure, by all means, do it. But I really don't know about him. However, the roster in front of him, in front of Korpisalo, I like. Thomas Chabot, Jacob Chikrin, Jake Sanderson on defense. Nice. Right? On forwards, you have Brady Tkachuk, Stützle, Norris if he's healthy. Batherson, question marks with the 2018, Team Canada thing, maybe. Claude Giroux, Vladimir Tarasenko. Ottawa's going to be nice. So he's a goalie to keep an eye on. I'm not saying he's the best. Far from it.
Right.
But
no, I agree with
sleeper, high potential. If we move on to my waiver claims here, waiver potential, I singled out 3 guys that might slip out the draft. Chance they still get drafted fairly far, but if they do slip out the draft and they are available on waivers, claim them, get them, okay? And we'll start with Taylor Hall, obviously becoming the number 1 line winger on the Blackhawks, playing likely with Connor Bedard. That immediately boosts his value. Even though the Blackhawks are a terrible team, he's still going to put up some points. And by the way, if you're playing with plus minus in your league, please talk to your commissioner. Tell him to get help. Okay. Anybody who's playing with plus minus just needs to stop. That is stupid. My little rant. I'll move on. Gustav Forsling on defense is probably one of the most reliable defensemen in the league. He's likely the number 3 guy in Florida. He still put up 41 points in 82 games last year. That's half a point per game as a number 3 defenseman. He is insanely reliable, and he's healthy. He played all 82 games last year. Definitely keep an eye on him. And I love the segue that you gave me here with stopping pucks, because that's exactly what Karel Vejmelka will do in Arizona. Okay. Arizona has atrocious defense. Matt, can you even name me 2 Arizona defensemen?
The answer is
neither
no.
Can
the
I.
answer is no.
Neither can I. All right. It's bad. And that will benefit, in a sense, Karel Vejmelka fantasy wise, because he'll face more shots, which means more saves. I mean, last year he had over 1,500 saves and 3 shutouts. Pretty interesting. I do think these guys are unlikely to slip out the draft, but if they do, please do yourself a favor, pounce on them.
It's funny. Off the top of my head, I wasn't able to name you anyone who played on Arizona's D, but they signed Matthew Dumba.
Okay.
I'm not going to say, I'm like, oh, they have Troy Stetcher. Like, I'm not going to make that case. They also do have Sean Durzi. Sean Durzi's a good third pairing defenseman. I will say that.
Yes.
But no, in that area, I'm in complete agreement with you. I want to move on to rookies because I find this very, very interesting. So if we could throw this up, obviously Connor Bedard is going to be there. Luke Hughes, that's an interesting name. Because we mentioned New Jersey and how good they're going to be. And obviously Devin Levi. To me, the interesting talking point on the with regards to the rookies, because I feel like they kind of speak for themselves, is, Buffalo's on the come up. They had a really, really good stretch last year. Like, they're coming too. Are they going to make the playoffs? Who knows? They're going to, Devin Levi is going to rack up some wins. Luke Hughes, he's got part of that New Jersey team. They're going to go crazy this year, according to a lot of people, including producer Shayne. The interesting one to me is Connor Bedard. Obviously, he's the superstar. He was the number 1 overall pick, this, that, whatever. But to me, the interesting thing is you're in a 10-man league, okay? Where's he going? Because I remember when I was in a 10-man league, the year that Connor McDavid got drafted, he went, I took him, I want to say, in the 3rd or 4th round. And like, people were still hesitant. I feel like times have changed. No one's really hesitant on the rookies anymore. So where's like a good time to take a stab at a Connor Bedard?
It really depends on what kind of league you're playing in, right? If you're playing in a keeper league where you can keep Connor Bedard, he's
Oh,
going
sure.
in the top 5. First round, easy first round, right? If you're strictly off points and you don't have a rookie requirement, like my league has a rookie requirement and is a keeper league. So he's going to go first round in my league. That's for sure.
Right.
But if you don't have a rookie requirement and you're only playing with points, it's a tough call, right? Because he has that special kind of talent, but he's surrounded by poo. Okay. And sure, he has Taylor Hall and Seth Jones to help him out on the power play. That could be nice. But let's be honest here, Chicago is going to suck this year. So I don't know that he'll be in a position to put up extreme number of points, but I would say between 60, 70 for a guy like that talent, I think is reasonable. With that being said, I could see him going like 3rd, 4th round, maybe. I think the name, drives excitement. The possibility of him being, that having that Sidney Crosby rookie season of over 100 points, it's possible, but I don't know. Connor Bedard is an interesting one. He's not my only forward rookie that I really like, but I'll keep those in my pocket for another show.
So let's do that, because I would love to talk about this again, even closer to draft season. So just quickly on Connor Bedard, I took a look while you were giving your speech there on how, I agree with you. There's nobody around him. Can he do it? On that front. But I took a look, and on the NHL's list, he's ranked, and keep in mind, this is overall, 250 players overall. He's ranked 38, so you're kind of bang on the money, like 3rd, 4th round there. And at that point, if you take a look at the forwards above him, there's 2 that are very interesting. That are the 2 direct forwards above him, which are Brad Marchand and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Nugent-Hopkins just came off his first career 100-point season in his 10th year in the NHL. Brad Marchand, how's he going to do now that Patrice Bergeron's not there anymore? Is he still going to be that being set up for 35 goals a year? And then one right under him is Zach Hyman, who had an 80-point season in Edmonton. So that just tells you, people are expecting this guy, because the top 250, it's not for keeper rankings. That'll just tell you that's you can expect anywhere between 70 to 90 points from Connor Bedard. And if you're getting the top end of that 90-point player in round 3, round 4, that's a league winner. That's a league winner right there.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's funny you mentioned Marchand. I almost put him in overrated, but I figured, okay, if he plays with Pasternak and with the defense that Boston has, right? They still have McAvoy, Hampus, Lindholm. He's going to be fine, right? Brad Marchand is still a good player. I won't really put him in overrated, but he is going to dwindle, right? If the first line center is Pavel Zacha, I don't know. I don't know. He's a great player. First line center, no. So remains to be seen. But yeah, Bedard is an interesting one. Man, I'm excited for keeper leagues with a rookie requirement. He, he's gonna change a lot of things, right? He's gonna stir the pot, because he's gonna go way higher than he should, just because of those requirements. So I'm excited.
Yeah, fantasy season right around the corner. We'll have you on. We'll have you on a lot more to talk about fantasy, especially leading up to draft season, because I got my draft. I think it's on the 28th, but that has to be moved, because the 28th is my mother's birthday. So that will be moved. But it's like we always do, kind of like the week before the season, mitigate the risk of injuries and whatnot. But very, very exciting time to be a hockey fan. It's all coming up.
Indeed.
It's all coming up. Podcast.
Smells like hockey. That's right. And I showered, so it's not me.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I knew I smelled something. Shayne, enjoy your weekend.
You as well. Take care.
Take care, Shayne. And all of you out there, enjoy your weekends. I'm Matt Ohayon. I'll catch you on Tuesday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.